On Autry, no retreat. It is Thursday, thunderous Thursday, and I'm by my lonesome here at the studio. It's just me today. Like it or leave it. No, don't leave it. You stay right there. Don't change that dial. Don't click it someplace else. Stay with me. We're going to talk about interesting things. May have a little fun. Want to start this show off with all the craziness going on in the world. I got Jeremy. That'll be the disembodied voice you hear. Won't see him on camera, but I may refer to him a little
Howdy,
bit.
howdy.
There you go. A couple of good dad jokes for you. All right. You heard that they opened up the first restaurant on the moon. Yeah, it's great food, but no atmosphere.
Oh, man.
Boom. All right, here's another one you can tell. You'll love it. What did one ocean say to the other ocean? Nothing, just waved. Okay, let's get on to the... Well, gosh darn it, I got to have something to take my mind off all of this stuff that's going on. Like I just looked up at the monitor here. The White House is having a briefing as we are speaking and fellowshipping right here, right now. And the White House has called for a pause in the war. Now, I know, look, war is hell. I warned before the attack on Ukraine happened. I said, look, you got to get to the negotiation table. Ukraine is not going to beat Russia. Just a whole bunch of people are going to die needlessly before you end up at the table and negotiate this thing to the best you can. And now they're starting to do that. But look at the thousands of people killed, not just the troops, sad enough, because that's somebody's child, daughter, son, father, mother killed, but all the civilians, innocent civilians that are always killed when war breaks out. And it's happening in mass in the Gaza Strip with the refugee camp. But if somebody would have called for a pause in the war after 9/11, hey, America, we know you lost 2,799 people with this brazen, heartless, horrific attack, but don't react too quick. Just sit back, think about it. Let's do a little restorative justice. Let's bring Al-Qaeda over here to America, and we'll sit down in a neutral place, Des Moines, Iowa, and we'll ask. Get to the root cause of why those three planes, the two planes went into the tower, and just maybe that way we can work things out and get on the same page and get past this before you respond. No, that's just not the way things work. It's war is hell, and when you do something like Hamas did, you can only expect the people that are on the receiving end of such murderous behavior is going to react just like you or I would. I tell you, Autry, you're a Bible believer. So how you reconcile with Jesus saying, turn the other cheek? If somebody slaps you on one cheek, you turn the other cheek. Well, I kind of delved into that a little bit and asked myself, why did he use that metaphor, Jesus? And I'm not trying to rationalize war. I honestly, long before this happened, this tragedy in Israel, because that bothered me, because Jesus also, that same Jesus, turned over the money changers' tables and whipped people out with a whip that he wove together before he did it. So there's a time to turn the other cheek and time to turn over the tables. But back to the example of turn the other cheek, because that's what I get, people hit me with all the time when I say Israel has no choice but to react the way it did and continues to do. As tragic and heart-wrenching as it is, that's how Hamas works. They take human shields, and if you're going to get to them, you have to go through innocent people, and that's horrific. Their own children, their own wives, their own sisters. You have a clash of civilizations where one side values life and the other one doesn't. And that's a bad mix. War is going to be particularly horrific when you get that into the mix. But back to the turn the other cheek. I don't believe that was a totally pacifist illustration and metaphor that Jesus used. to say that when somebody's beating up on you, you just let them continue to beat you till you're dead. And if someone does that to your family members, that you just sit back and do nothing. Now, why do I think that? Because I think Jesus would have used a different metaphor rather than slapped on the cheek. You notice he didn't say if someone puts a spear through your heart or your family's hearts that you don't fight back. Slapping somebody's almost like an insult. You even have slap fights. The UFC, Dana White started the slap fight league. You're not going to really kill somebody by slapping them. To me, metaphorically, that is like, they slapped you, don't take it personal. Then you can have that conversation. Hey, you really lost it and slapped me. I'm not going to fire back. In fact, I'm going to turn the other cheek and let you kind of get this out of your system. Kind of like, all right, tell me everything you want to tell me about how bad I am. And then we can talk. Or I think he would have used a different metaphor other than slapping somebody on the cheek and turning the other cheek. Now, I'm not a theologian. I certainly I'm not a pastor, obviously. And some people might accuse me of just trying to rationalize violence by taking that approach. But like I said just a few moments ago, and you have the choice either trust me or not trust me, I was thinking along those terms and asking those questions, that critical thinking that I'm always talking about, the Bible. And I would particularly tell anybody out there to apply critical thinking to the Bible. Don't blindly follow any pastor. As good as they may be, you may interpret things more correctly than them sometimes. But there's a lot of good pastors out there. Don't get me wrong. You should listen to them. Always keep an open mind to people who know a lot about a particular subject. Keep an open mind, but don't let your brain fall out, as they said. Because you sitting there right at home, right now, listening on the radio or watching online right now, well, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm just a little nobody. No, you're not, and your opinion does matter, mostly to you, but it matters to others as well. When you have a nation of critical thinkers attempting to find out the truth, that's what critical thinking is all about. You don't critically think to try to fulfill a predetermined narrative. That's what the left is trying to do. That's what wokeism is. That's what Marxism is, communism. They have their ideology and everything else is taught, and you are forced to, if you're part of that system or under the prisonership of that system, to think like them. Not to critically think and ask questions whether that system is really good and proper and for mankind. You're not, or whether it works or not, whether it's good, bad, or whatever. You're not allowed to think that. But for the Bible, yes, critically think. That's what Jesus, I feel, wanted us to do individually. So what you think about things is really important, and that you don't just accept things at face value all the time. Because I think if you have two people sitting down and you have an audience, and the subject is what is more fulfilling and proper and the way God intended for human beings to live under, freedom or tyranny, I'll trust that the better case is going to be made for the one who's proposing the freedom. It is better for the soul of a human being and the collective soul of a country and the world, for that matter. So when you sit back and you're part of that audience listening, going, okay, I'm going to keep an open mind. Maybe tyranny in some cases is better than freedom. I don't know. I'm going to keep an open mind about it. But I have no problem going head to head with anybody who thinks that tyranny is better for the human soul and the right thing to do morally. I mean, I could sit down and talk to somebody from Hamas, from somebody who's a Marxist, whatever. Bring your list of great things that your ideology has done for people to make their lives better, to extend their lives in some extent, help their children grow up with healthy mental health, physical health, even for that matter, spiritual health. Bring your list. I'll bring mine. And let's sit down and have a discussion about that. And that's why I welcome people on this show that differ from me. But this whole thing that Israel, this pause that's happening right now, and I'm sorry, folks, our president, it's way past time for him to go. And I don't mean go in the sense that Biden said Putin's got to go. Somebody take him out. Absolutely not. I mean for him to say, I've stayed around too long. You know, you see it in athletics when an athlete just stays around too long. And you see their skills diminish and they're hanging on. And deep inside you're saying, oh, man, just not just for your own good, because you were probably at one time good. I mean, it's like if you watch like Willie Mays back in the day. Willie played about 2-3 seasons, one of the greatest players of all time. But he stayed around too long. And his last couple of years, he was tripping over his feet out in center field. He couldn't hit couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, as they say. He stayed around too long. And Biden clearly, physically, mentally, I don't know about his spiritual state of being, but just on those two things, mentally and physically, needs to go. Further proof of that, to me, is what happened last night, last couple of days, and what just happened right now. If you haven't heard, most of you have, I'm going to tie this together for you. And I think, to me, in my mind, another compelling reason why he should step aside. Well, that means Kamala will take over. Well, roll the dice with her, and until November next year. And then, oh my gosh, I'll be praying that this country comes to its collective senses and elects someone into that office that knows what they're doing on this world stage and embodies American values and will honestly, openly, and courageously stand by those principles. But back to what happened days ago. Out of nowhere, Biden decides to issue an executive order aimed at controlling AI, artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not criticizing that when people like Elon Musk, who knows a lot about artificial intelligence and has many other CEOs of companies, many of which don't particularly care for Elon Musk and would not align their positions with Elon Musk if they had a choice, went along with him and said, AI is something we need to take a look at and make sure that this technology doesn't wind up owning us, and at the very worst, wind up destroying us. It has potentially the capability, if misused. Well, what do you mean like that? Well, you could get this technology where the AI decides, hey, you know what? This whole world is beyond repair. Let's just start these nuclear weapons. Let's just launch them, which will cause a domino effect in this world and start over again. Well, that's just outrageous. Outrageous. That'll never happen. You know, that's stuff that we used to say back in 1968 when we were watching a series called Star Trek. Oh, that stuff will never happen, where you can talk to a machine, it'll talk back. Now I am talking to Siri every day. Siri, how do I get to Save Mart? Well, Siri doesn't talk like that, but it's amazing how many things on that show that we back then thought were so crazy would never happen are with us today. And some of it not very good. The social media. I mean, there was a time where you said, you know what? There's no way you could connect with somebody living in a cave in Afghanistan somewhere, lost in the hills there. Yeah, you can't get NBC, ABC, CBS camera in there. You can't get radio waves through there. Then along came the internet. And you literally have the ability to reach everyone in the world who has a device. And mentioning Elon Musk with his Starlink, you can take this little contraption, take it with you in that cave and be connected to the world. So everybody's going deep into this AI because it's run by AI. So it's upon us. It's here. And it is an issue that's worthy of discussion, and I think worthy of participation. I think it's a must-have participation of the federal government. The world. That'd be a great subject for the UN to be involved in. Stop trying to be, peacemaker when you're totally bought and paid for by countries, and most of them that hate the United States of America, and yet we continue to fund this organization, which is inexplicable to me. But with a war raging in Ukraine, the country that Biden and Congress is backing is losing big time. And if what you say is at stake, the freedom of the world and the freedom of all of Western Europe, if you do feel that if Ukraine falls, Poland is next, and the next thing you know, it's Great Britain, Italy, Spain, so on and so forth. That's what you've been telling us. That's why we spent over $120 billion there. That's why you said we will support them as long as it takes for as much as it costs. So you got that going on. You got a border that's let 8 million people into our country that is totally out of control. Terrorists, 400-something on a terrorist watch list that you know of, were apprehended. Literally thousands, perhaps more than that, with terrorist ties are free, roaming the United States of America, doing Lord knows what. You got that going on. Then you got the war raging in Israel that escalates by the minute. Okay? So what do? You watch Mission Impossible, the movie. Folks, what I'm going to tell you actually happened. In fact, Karine Jean-Pierre confirmed it. John Kirby, his spokesman, confirmed this. Joe Biden, I guess he wasn't convinced that AI was, by the experts, Elon Musk, said it's something that we should concern ourselves with, sooner rather than later. It takes Tom Cruise, a Tom Cruise movie you see, and you're so stirred and moved by the plot line in that Mission Impossible. From what I understand, the number one villain is a guy involved with AI. He's going to destroy the world via AI. That moves you so much that you immediately call your staff together and are going to issue an executive order aimed at containing AI. All this stuff going on. There's a term, man, didn't see that coming. Man, that came out of left field. Well, the sad thing, the fact that he did such an offbeat, crazy thing at the timing that he's done it is not surprising. It's the crazier things he does. It doesn't, everybody laughed, thought it was a little gross when he was sniffing hair left and right, but again, like I said, I'm not the brightest chrome on the bumper, but I was an elected official. I was the mayor of the city of Fresno. I know better than to sniff anybody's hair on camera. I'm not a hair sniffer in private. I don't particularly like the smell of Aquanet. But you just know you don't do certain things on camera. He's been in government over 50-something years. But he has this press conference, and it would be funny if it wasn't so sad and so scary. Even his Democratic colleagues are left tongue-tied trying to explain it. Well, the president, because God bless those reporters said, with everything going on, is this the time to have an executive order when you have the Gaza refugee camp bombed twice and truly 1 second away, possibly from World War III, if Iran decides to say, that's it, Hezbollah, go get them. And then we bring Syria into the war, Lebanon into the war, which means then you got Russia, so on and so forth. You get my point. Watching them still trying to defend this president on this bizarre action. I mean, geez, somebody please don't let him watch Barbie. I mean, he's going to come out and issue an executive order saying, watch your every toy, every Barbie should be able to become real for their mental health of toys. For the mental health of those inanimate Barbie dolls, I immediately declare them to identify as alive because I saw what it did for Barbie, and it could be for you, and I'm in the spirit of equity. Of course, I'm being silly, but it's really bizarre when you sit and think about it, that a movie that you saw the night before moves you to such action that's so out of left field. And then today, he crosses the Rubicon. You're how many days into this? I don't even know if all the funerals, Jeremy, have been performed in Israel of the 1,400 of the dead. Some of them have been buried. Some by tradition take longer. They just opened up the morgue over there, this freezer. I saw some footage with all of these unidentified Israeli bodies, and it was horrific. It reminds you so much of opening up those gas chambers after World War II when Eisenhower was over there visiting the camps, and you just saw these emaciated bodies that had been starved to death. They opened that freezer door, and there they are. I know for sure they haven't been buried, the unidentified of the 1,400 that were killed in that Hamas slaughter. So you cause for a pause, and I want to take a break when I come back because I'm sorry, folks. I had a whole different subject I was going to talk about till I saw what was up on the monitors. And Jeremy will attest to this. You don't see him, but I tell you, he is the machinery behind these shows. Guillermo Marino show, Bongino, everything that goes on here. We call him Dr. J because he's always fixing stuff around here. And Jeremy, appreciate everything you do, but he makes sure that we have CNN going and Fox. We're truly fair and balanced here. Most days I try to be fair all the time, not balanced all the time. Hey, I ran for the mayor of Fresno, didn't I? And became an actor. How balanced is that? A guy with this face saying, hey, I think I'm going to go to Hollywood and be an actor. Oh, boy. God does have a sense of humor. I know that because he made me. Ready to come back? Okay.
This hour of the Alan Autry Show is sponsored by Sinlaw, the most realistic artificial grass in the Central Valley.
Welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat. The president has called for a pause in the Israeli ground attack and air attack on Hamas, in particular the refugee camps, but a total complete pause, which I guess that's how politicians are. They don't want to use the trigger word ceasefire, because that's what the protesters came into Congress saying, ceasefire now, interrupted a congressional meeting there with some administration officials. Pause, ceasefire, same thing. And the question was to do what? It's an impossible situation that Israel is faced with. Because to say that Hamas does not fight fair is probably the biggest understatement that could come out of your mouth right now, anybody's mouth. Again, you have a war of civilizations, a civilization who values and honors life, and one that doesn't. So their MO is to go blow up people, men, women, and children, behead them, burn them, run back to where you come from, grab every innocent woman and child that you can, and sick person. They love to go hole up in hospitals, schools. Love that. Because they know the only way to get to them, you have to go through these innocent people. So what do you do? How does that end? How does that tactic ever change? For the last 19 years, since 2007, they've lived side by side. And people can say, well, if Israel hadn't put the blockade on, that wouldn't have happened. Do you know how many rockets have been fired from Gaza into Israel during that 19 years? Something around there, give or take a few years in 2007. Constantly, thousands and thousands and thousands. There was open for a two-state solution. That's been on the table for a long time. And by the way, Israel is not alone on the blockade. Egypt, Jordan. You didn't hear any round criticism of the blockade from Israel, did you? That wasn't in the news. You didn't hear the UN condemning Israel and its blockade. Why? Because there's other countries involved too. They know how this group Hamas operates. They don't know how to extract Hamas from the peaceful Palestinians any more than Israel does. They know this group, about 20,000 fighters right in the Gaza Strip, have no regard for human life, that they want to push Israel into the sea. What does that mean? It means genocide. So pause and do what? Negotiate? And you say, well, the Hamas, give back the hostages in exchange for what? Calling it off? Calling the offensive off? And if you do, Hamas is not going to give them all back because that's the only cover that. What advantage do they have with that? You think if all of those hostages are given back, that Israel's not going to continue to attack? It's sad, there is no good choice. It's just getting the best of bad choices. And Israel has chosen that best of the bad choice involves their survival as a country and a people. Because it's not, if you notice in the language with Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran, it's not just the destruction of the state of Israel and supplanting that with Palestine. It's to eradicate every Jew from the face of the earth. Now you got to listen when these people talk. I heard the minister of communications minister for Hamas a couple of days ago. You got to Google that. You want to get, and he no holds barred. To give him credit, he just said, "This is who we are. This is our goal: completely destroy Israel, any remnants of Jewish society, the Jewish faith, to be eradicated, starting in what is now they call Palestine, but around the entire Arab world, then throughout the rest of the world. They got a group called the Houthis over there in Yemen. They've got folks in Africa, Jew hunting. So what do you expect Israel to do? I tell you, I said on this show before, and it's just, if I heard a group of people, an organization, saying, we're going to dedicate our lives and educate our children to wipe out every Autry on the face of the earth, and we're going to start Fresno, then the South, and they have the means to do so. They have the guns, they have the alliances, they got friends that say, I'll go with that. And they proceed to take action. I hear of a cousin in Louisiana or Alabama. I don't care. First cousin, second cousin, third cousin, fifth cousin. They're an Autry. And you've got a gang of murderous thugs dedicated to killing them, and they start doing it. You think I'm going to just sit in Fresno and do nothing? I wasn't raised that way. If I go down, I'm going to go down like David Crockett Alamo. I'm not going to, and by the way, I'm going to take preemptive action. If I find out who you are and that you've killed my family members and you're going to continue to kill my family members, I'm coming after you. And I think you would too, listeners. You would too, watching online. And so will Israel. So So what's happened is Joe Biden, after watching Tom Cruise movie, I'm not saying he shouldn't have some relaxation time watching the movie, but having moved him so much that you just have this AI deal, knowing full well, or I would assume he did, but maybe not, what I do think happened, and without empirical evidence, but as sure as I'm sitting here in terms of a gut feeling, and I think you know it too, Joe Biden is not running this country. The person who has the most influence is Jill Biden, and Jill Biden's being controlled by this cabal of woke figures, leftovers from the Obama administration. And by the way, you find it interesting that you haven't heard anything from Barack Obama? Crickets. You had this world ready to explode. I don't recall seeing a tweet. If it was a tweet, it would have made the news. He hasn't said one word. Yet Susan Rice, his top advisor, is Joe Biden's top advisor. You notice you never see her name in the news. She wants it that way. Why? She wants to be known as the architect of the things that work, which has been not much in this administration, but they want to run like scalded dogs at things that fail. So this small group coming up the election time, and it's all about the election. This is insight to this man. Like I've told you, I hate saying this. He's not the nice grandpa figure that you thought he was. He's a very self-serving and at times very mean person that thinks about one thing, being reelected and advancing the Democratic Party and leaving some kind of legacy. I don't know what it is that I went after AI in the middle of an Israeli Hamas war. I don't know. But we know that this election coming up, he's feeling the heat. The latest poll numbers came out. I think he's around 36%, which is the lowest that he's ever been. On across the board, from the economy, foreign affairs, the border, everything. You get below 45, you get a little squirmy if you're an elected official. You get around 40, 41, you're squirming a little more, but you got hope. You can do something, take a stance, put forth an initiative, do something that you get credit for, and you can pop it up to mid and high 40s, which going into election is survivable. Because y'all can just get over 50% what you need at the end of the day. You got to get more than the other guy or gal. Okay. But conventional wisdom is, and I happen to believe it, that you dip below 40, you in mucho trouble being elected, whether it's dog catcher or the president of the United States. And you have an individual, you don't know about Trump doing anything to hang on to power. This guy, this party, the Democratic Party, this woke agenda that they've embraced that has gone from a political ideology to a religion, that they're willing to take down the entire United States as we know it today in order to implement that woke ideology. That's who is in Joe Biden's ear. That's who's steering policy. The squad. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, a little help from some of the lesser-known folks, Hakeem Jeffries. They're the ones that said, President, this is what I feel. You have to call for a pause. You have to be courageous. Why? Because Michigan is a battleground state that he's going to have to carry in 2024, and there's a lot of Muslims in Michigan. Oh, gosh. You know, I wish when I was mayor, I went to Sacramento up here, and I said, you know, it's not going to be as bad as I think it is. The politics, people driven just by politics, not by what's good for the people, that's been exaggerated. You got good people that care about policy for, it's just been exaggerated, and I'm going to find it's not that bad. It was that bad in Sacramento. You know anything worse? When I took my trips to Washington, D.C., it is infuriating, scary, and sickening all at the same time to see how blinded these people get when they get in power, when they feel that power is threatened, and what the extents they will go to keep that power. And I believe with all my heart, this pause has nothing to do with fairness to Israel, to bring peace to the Middle East because they know there is no negotiating with Hamas. They knew innocent civilians were going to lose their lives. Everyone knew that. Is the only question, does Israel have enough courage and will to do what has to be done to secure their nation? That was all it was. The prevailing feeling, I think, was that there was so much infighting in Israel that they made a miscalculation. They didn't think it'd come this swift, this strong, because Netanyahu's not that popular. You got the other guy who's a more moderate. I mean, they've been fighting for the last 5-10 years like cats and dogs in Israel, trying to build coalition governments and this and that. And by the way, have a lot of Arabs that live very happily in Israel. They don't want to change. They've learned that not all Jews are Satan. Quite the contrary. They find a lot in common with the Jews. They're in business together. The kids go to school together. They go to PTA meetings together. They go over to each other's house and break bread together. Yes, Muslims and Jews in Israel. And you know who can't stand that? Who will do anything they can, including murder 1,400 people, to stop that kind of civility, to stop that kind of love from happening? Hamas. And everybody who supports Hamas. All of these demonstrations around the country, I'm sorry. When you come out and the first thing you do in your protest is say that Israel pretty much had it coming, then I know where you stand. It's not about a negotiated solution. It's about the ending of Israel as a country and the Jewish people as a people. So that's why you're getting this pause, this little ceasefire. I just saw up here now the headline, the poll, most recent poll, Biden's support is dropping among Democrats. Well, thank goodness. Let me tell you, folks, my mom was a Democrat. I don't think she ever registered, but she's a Democrat. Because she came out of World War II. Franklin Roosevelt. They revered him. If your party, people in your party that happen to have got into power, and you're looking at each other going, how in the heck did they get in a position where they're calling the shots? This woke left. Yeah, I'm going to blame you like the Republican Party lets some misfits, knuckleheads, knotheads rise up the ladder. Next thing you know, you got Lauren Boebert over there screaming during a speech like a dummy, you know, doing something that you tell kids never to do. It happens on both sides. But when you have your leadership who supports an open border, that millions of people come in, okay, that you don't even know who they are, many of them terrorists, you try to tell the people that inflation is good for their pocketbook. It's good to pay 3 times what you used to pay for a loaf of bread. It costs 3 times as much to fill up your gas. And then it's good that you don't have money to buy school clothes for your kid. You got a party leadership that says, that's good for you. To get involved in tangles and wars you can't win. That you support policies that reward criminals and punish victims. I'm going to look to you, Democrats. It does not make you a bad Democrat to be against those things and get rid of those things and purge those things from your party. I'll go a step further. It makes you a true Democrat. It makes you a true liberal. Because what I just mentioned there, none of the true liberals, the Bill Maher liberals, I'll even go that far, the Abby Hoffman liberals, never would support that agenda. Only somebody who absolutely hates America and wants to see all of our institutions completely destroyed and start over under a Marxist foundation, a godless society where you have big government telling you everything you do, what you can and can't do in your life, is where these people want to go. They honestly feel that humanity would function better and more lovingly and more equitably if that was the case. So I'm kind of opposite of some folks here. I don't want to see Joe Manchin leave and become a Republican. We just had this Dallas mayor become a Republican. Okay, you want to do that, but I would say no. Stay in your party, change your party. Because we need 2 healthy parties. A 2-party system, as imperfect as it is, has proven to be the best way to function as a government. You look at Israel, England, outside of the dictatorships, when you try to, make a democracy work, what you got to watch out for is that you don't fragment into a bunch of sub-parties. And that's what's happening in our parties here, Republican Party and Democratic Party. You've got the far right on Republicans. You've got the middle. You've got the MAGA. You've got the moderate Republicans. You got these little groups on the left. You have the traditional liberals like Nancy Pelosi. You got the woke left. You've got all of these. And the key now is, can you build a coalition building? That's what they were trying to do in Israel, because they let that fragmentation go so long without coming together under some basic principles that both parties adhered to. It wasn't that long ago that both parties agreed that you needed a secure border. There was a legal way to get into this country and pursue the American dream. We open arms for folks like that. There, not too long ago remember a phrase, you do the crime, you got to do the time? Remember that? You don't hear that anymore. Both parties used to say that, hey, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. It was just accepted. A man plays men's sports. A boy plays with boys in boys sports. You didn't let them come over. Boys play in, girls softball. It was, and that wasn't called unfair or discriminatory or all that stuff. It was just common sense, a common set of common principles that the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans shared. Then you got into the discussion, and I think it was the one big discussion point, the one aspect of politics that separated the two parties, and I think kept good conversation and good policy coming out of that built-in tension between Republicans and Democrats, which started when this country was first founded, was how big should government be? How much influence should it have in your life? Hamas, completely. And we decide we don't want women in the workplace like the Taliban. Total dictatorship. So we know what that's all about. But to make this special thing called democracy work, you need a central government that's strong, but not abusive. You need tax dollars generated, but you got to have a system where you don't have non-burdensome taxation for individuals, families, corporations, and business, so forth. Where's the proper role for entanglement in foreign wars? You had different philosophies on that, on some issues, but the basic principles of being a strong America, that we are the beacon of freedom for the world, was something both parties shared. And the Supreme Court was good. Knowing history was good. It made our children smarter, not dumber. Now you want to just get rid of history and rewrite it the way you want it. So you have no memory of how America started. And it was like all these kids know about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. You ask them, they were slave owners. And you try to say, well, yeah, but they did a few other things too. And they say, well, I wasn't on the test. Yeah, they created the most precious document that this world has ever seen in terms of freedom for individuals. So what we're seeing now is just a mixture of politics being inserted into this horrible conflict in Israel and Hamas. And I, for one, have no idea what Joe Biden's next move is going to be. I just know it's going to be political in nature. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat. Thank you for tuning in. God bless, love you, and just do your best. Let God do the rest. And I promise you it's going to turn out the way it's supposed to. May not be what we like initially, but trust God in the long run, because he knows what's better for us than we do. Love y'all. Bye-bye now.